Okay. Here we go. Yes. Who said real news at noon? I think I did. Folks, you're going to like the next hour. Yep. We're live in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. There's Denise Oliver. Hola. Will we make the August goal? There's Jane Rice. Edgewood checks in. Arlene Maroney. Yes. Yep. No question about it. Can't deny that Arlene is checking in with us. I wouldn't even attempt it. Folks, police under fire. Wow. Isn't it amazing how quickly the local media turns on our local police? I think it's atrocious. I do. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Why were they punching someone that had a gun? I think that, see, my question would be, why weren't they punching the guy that had the gun? Holy cow. Brian Crandall. So you thought he was going to pull it out? Hey, listen, many times they then pass it off to someone else. I mean, it's just, Chief Perez, far calmer than I would have been. You know what? I got to reach out to him, and I want to have him on. Maybe tomorrow. Glad I just thought of that. Yikes. All right. We are live in 1 minute. 1 minute. No one can deny that we're live in 1 minute. No one. I wouldn't even try. There's Ryan LeMay. There's Denise Oliver. Hola. Yes. Thank you, Arlene. Little tired, You look tired. Thank you. Camera adds 10 pounds. No, listen, we run a busy schedule. And so, of course, I'm a little tired. There's Chris Moran. Listen, could I use 2 weeks off? Of course. But does the news stop? What should I tell you? I'll see you in September. It's not happening. There's Roxanne. Yes, especially with what's going on. All right, we're live in just one moment. I do need to get a little more rest. No doubt about it. But we're ready to roll. We are ready to roll. Special guest coming up, excuse me, at 12:30. 12:30. Now we just wait for our cue. And at 12:06 on what is another beautiful Wednesday, it's Wednesday, August 14th. I think of my mom. This was her birthday, Virginia DePietro. Jidge is known to family and friends, thinking of her on what would have been her birthday. Rest in peace. Always missed. Folks, this portion of our program is brought to you, the Noon Report, the real news at noon, is brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Remember, right now, locally sourced vegetables, sweet corn, native tomatoes, they have it all. 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. Maybe you don't like fresh vegetables. If you don't like fresh vegetables, then PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center is probably not the place for you. But for those of us that do enjoy them and love them, and they're so great to eat, stop in and see them. Plus, they have hanging pots, hanging impatiens, large selection of beautiful patio pots. I always receive the nicest messages from people that say, Juan, I hear you talk about it. I decided to stop in. A nice family, I think DeSimone, on their way back from, I think they were at Sand Hill Cove. They figured, you know what, let's pop off, went in, got some delicious corn and vegetables and plants, and said, I think she said a male waited on her, so it was either Steve or Junior, but said the selection was great, service was excellent. Folks, PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Remember, they're a full-scale nursery. Stop in, small business, the backbone of any community, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. Now, you do hear me talk about DePietro.com for good reason. There's a lot of information there. There's links to all of our social media. And remember, make sure you follow. We have different content on different pages, such as YouTube, such as our Instagram page has really grown. It also allows me to communicate with various criminals and drug dealers who really like being on Instagram. Also, we've had tremendous success on TikTok, and then obviously X, and then our mainstay, which is Facebook, over 70,000 followers strong. Add them all up, we're at 200,000 people that follow our content online. And then, of course, we have the radio show and DePietro.com. But check out DePietro.com, brought to you by the Cohasset Inn, 226 Cohasset Avenue, West Warwick. Folks, the Cuisinart Inn, reliable, steady, delicious food, great service, always there for you, able to accommodate a large group. They're waiting for you at the Cuisinart Inn. All right, so we're going to break up at 12:30. Kevin Lenahan. You see him on, if you follow Court TV, he's on a lot. Especially, he was on basically every night at 8 o'clock with Vinnie Politano, covering the Karen Read trial. I've been a guest on Kevin, his podcast, Yellow Cottage Tales. He's very, very knowledgeable, and I invited him on. He's going to join me at 12:30, only because of apparently. So Friday, I was up in Dedham, up at Dedham for the Karen Read hearing. And then we learned that Friday night, apparently, I think it was Friday night, could have been over the weekend, but sometime over the weekend from Friday night, WEI, Greg Hill, and his sidekick, who I'm not that familiar with, but they had dinner. They were offered dinner with Karen Read, and they accepted. And so some interesting things came out of that. We're going to talk about that at 12:30 with Kevin. And then we'll also do a White House update. President Trump, a race for the White House is what I meant. And we might as well do the update now, but I do want to talk about the police and what you're viewing right now. And folks, this portion of this race for the White House 2024 update is brought to you by Propane Plus, located, in Rhode Island. It doesn't matter where they're located, but in Rhode Island, 401-885-4209. In Massachusetts, 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. 3 generations. They're available 24/7. You can depend on Propane Plus. Residential or commercial, always there for you. It's Propane Plus. So this race for the White House update brought to you by Propane Plus. So tomorrow, apparently, President Trump is scheduled a 4:30 press conference. And I think it's positive. And I'll tell you why I think it's positive. Is I don't think the last one went that well. And I think that he's getting more engaged. No one said it's fair. No one said it's fair that he thought he was going to face President Biden and now he's facing Harris. However, is it a close race? It's absolutely a close race. But I believe there's a lot of it's basically across the board, unanimous, that he needs to be disciplined. He needs to be focused. You can't just riff. He needs targeted to show the difference in issues between Trump Vance and Harris and Waltz. By the way, who's in Massachusetts later today, and then Newport, somewhere in Rhode Island tomorrow. And really it's like ATM. He's just running to the Massachusetts ATM. He's running to the Rhode Island ATM just to grab some quick money. So 4:30 tomorrow, I believe, at his country club in Bedminster, New Jersey. And my only hope is, and I have said, folks, you have to be objective here. It's not like I'm a lone wolf. Anyone that is following this is saying they just want President Trump. This is a winnable election. It's going to be a close election. But stop whining about crowd sizes. Stop whining about that, number one. Number two, stop with the personal attacks. Just show how you're different. I'll also say number three. Now, if you heard the first hour, Nikki Haley was on Fox, and I agree with her, by the way. All of this talk of she won't do interviews, and Kamala Harris, the VP, won't do interviews. She doesn't need to do interviews. She's done interviews. She is on the record of things. Why do you want to let her do interviews to now redefine herself? She's Biden Harris. That's her record. She doesn't need, it doesn't matter what she says. So stop whining that she won't do interviews and blanking crowd size. That doesn't mean anything. Talk about where she is on the economy. And she's not friendly to the economy. And I mean, I don't know of a lot of people that are happy with the way the economy is going. So I hope tomorrow at 4:30, I hope this is, and by the way, I know President Trump likes to be hostile to the press, but just answer. There are legitimate questions. Make yourself available. She's not going to make herself available because she's trying to reframe herself. And from what we understand, there's a good article in Axios today that what Harris is going to do is the vice president, she wants to break off from she wants to break off from the Biden administration and policies. So, stop whining about crowd size. Stop. Talk about the amount of fentanyl coming into the country. Talk about the economy. Talk about the border. Just, those, and also there are two wars going on in the world right now. And don't look now, but Ukraine is regaining and taking ground in Russia. So I don't know where that's going to go. But I think for all the, and you know what else I liked was Nikki Haley. She was very good on Fox. And one of the things she said was, and I agree with this, by the way, and not everyone's going to understand this, but I agree with this. Stop playing to the base. If right now, if you are a Republican and you're a Trump supporter, I don't know, what, if you're not with him now, then there's no hope. And that, to me, that was part of the problem with choosing Senator Vance, was because he's a MAGA guy anyway. So I agree. I don't fully gain that. I agree that it's not going to, break or make or break the ticket. But and listen, he's really smart. He's got a very interesting story. So I'm not negative on JD Vance, although he's been under attack a little bit. I think he handles himself very well. But my point is, at this point, if you are a Trump supporter and you're saying, I don't know, well, then there's no hope, because that's not where the play is. You got to go for the middle. You got to go for, and a lot of Trump people don't get that, but you have to go for the undecided independent voters in these battleground states. And I'll tell you, the Harris strategy, which is she's not saying anything. She's just an alternative, and she's gliding through, and she's giggling and happy, and she's not Biden. Say what you want. That's gaining steam right now. All right. I want to talk about the situation with the Providence Police. But folks, this portion of our program, I want to remind you, if you're thinking of doing any type of improvement on your home or business, AJ Home Improvement, 401-323-9252. Frame to finish basements, acoustical ceilings, new homes, additions, commercial rehabs, painting, remodeling. They can do it all. Call today, 401-323-9252. If you need any part of your home renovated or business, call AJ today. And again, as I have mentioned, the latest thing that's going to take place is they're going to start to allow these outside dwellings on property, or even they call them granny flats. So if that's the case, or maybe you want to just add on to your home or improve your business, AJ Home Improvement, give them a chance to pitch your business. 401-323-9252. Well, folks, good afternoon. This is The Real News at Noon. You're listening to the John DePetro Show. Again, good afternoon to everyone watching on YouTube, everyone watching on X, of course, our Facebook Live faithful. And then you can also listen online at the website, depetro.com. And then you can listen AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. I did get an email from, let's see, I received an email from Lucy, who was asking me, she's got some branches and who should she call to get them trimmed. And I wanted to pass that along. Lucy, contact JD Lawn Care Tree Service. Give them a call, 401-441-0154. Now, they're saying it's going to be a very busy hurricane season. Call JD Lawn Service and Lawn Care and Tree Service today. Get those branches trimmed, 401-441-0154. Now, coming up at 12:30, we are going to talk with Kevin Lenahan, only because of it's very significant. It's very significant about the situation with Karen Reed setting up this dinner to float out some information. But I want to touch on what you saw happen yesterday. Now, those of you that watch Road Patrol know, so we were attempting to be at the Dominican Festival that took place on the south side of Providence on Sunday night. We were there for part of it. It was extremely hectic and heavy traffic. And then, we missed the real action and it drives me nuts, by like 15 to 20 minutes. But let me just mention something. So, and especially, I want to, the media yesterday, the fact that the chief of police, Chief Oscar Perez of Providence Police, who I think is doing an excellent job, and the fact that he had to call a press conference because, and I saw it on social media, I saw it. And you know what I saw? I saw someone who wasn't complying with police. But the questions towards Chief Oscar Perez, is that a good look where, and they was depicted as, oh, there's a guy in handcuffs and there's a police officer just tagging him. I want to back up for a moment. What you see in that video, that is a riot that is going on, number one. It was turning into a riot. It was a very unruly crowd. If you've seen some of the footage, there are full bottles of Hennessy, full bottles just laying on the ground, open drinking. It was getting more raucous. It was a lot of people in a condensed area. There were people fighting back and forth and throwing bottles, but then they started throwing bottles at police, at law enforcement. So what you see in that video is a 400-pound guy who's known to police, or maybe even 425, and they carry a satchel, and he's got a gun in the satchel. And so, and I like Brian Crandall of NBC 10. I respect Brian Crandall of NBC 10. But asking the chief, so were you concerned that he was going to get the gun out? And listen, you have a mob of people, and they're trying to disperse them. And this guy who's had gun charges in the past clearly has a weapon. Now, everything doesn't have to be like a movie where he takes out the gun and starts spraying the crowd. However, many times, what do they try to do? They try to ditch the gun. They try to hand it off to someone. He had a loaded firearm at that festival. So I like how Chief Perez said, listen, the use of force, it's not always pretty, but in this situation, look at the way they were treating the police. But again, the media, and I didn't see all of it, but I heard some chatter and, the usual suspects, but I think it was framed wrong. And then one of the television stations had a headline of, police chief has a press conference to address police punching man in handcuffs. Well, first of all, they didn't fully have him in handcuffs yet, number one. Number two, they leave out the most important element of the story, which was you had a mob and it was getting more and more unruly, and this guy had a firearm. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to get him. You don't just say, hey, could you please? I mean, you're trying to subdue him. Why do you think many times they get them on the ground in order to subdue them and handcuff them and control them? In that particular situation, the guy is flailing. So one of the things is, and any basic self-defense, if you've ever taken any, if you punch someone in the stomach, they tend to go inward. When they go inward, you're able to then subdue them. I mean, it's basic self-defense. But I want to be very clear. In NBC 10, interviewing, oh, there's the mother and the girlfriend, and he was going to hand the gun. Oh, yeah, he's going to hand the gun over. How big of him? Why did he have? He's not licensed to carry a firearm. Why did he have a loaded firearm there? What do you mean? Oh, he was just about to hand it over. Oh, yeah, I'm sure he was. Providence Police Chief defends officer shown in video punching man during arrest. Again, Channel 10 leaves out the fact that he was armed. What part of that? Why are they purposely putting this headline? Providence Police Chief defends officer shown in video punching man who had loaded gun during arrest. Why is this so tough? Why is that so difficult for NBC 10 to put that out there? And the same with the other and I get it. Oh, here we go. I've already got an email. People from Massachusetts, because all cops are corrupt. Didn't you follow the Karen Reed? Oh, okay. What? Oh, he was just about to hand it over. He was just, here, officer. Here's my loaded firearm. I've been drinking all day. I've drank 2 bottles of Hennessy. I've been arrested on gun charges. Let me hand over my. What? No, he doesn't decide that. In this whole business of the mother and the girlfriend. Let me just play some of this. I want to play some of this.
Officers were trying to get people to leave the area. claims Placencio was refusing, had an open alcohol bottle, and was acting nervous about a bag strapped over his shoulder and was looking to toss the bag. In the report, officers claim they then felt the handle of a gun in the bag. And that's when they claim Placencio struggled with them, and the officer punched him, they say, to get control of him because he was resisting arrest. Injustice. Placencio's girlfriend, who was next to him in that video. He's going to give you the bag just like you asked for, and he was giving it to them while they were still doing all that extra stuff. Why are you sitting here punching him when he's literally giving it to you? It doesn't make any sense. Police say they did find
here, officer. Here's my weapon. Here's my gun.
The chief says the incident was already reviewed by his department, and the punches
you axed him.
Appropriate. No one wants to use force, and I don't think any Providence police officer comes to work thinking
no.
they're going to use force. But unfortunately, it's part of the job because it's either for self-defense or to compel compliance, and that's what happened on Sunday. For none of them cops to get nothing happen to them?
No.
Like, that's crazy. They
Why?
He was resisting
Here's the mother.
Yeah, that's what they claim. But the video says something else.
Placencio's mother. They're saying he had a gun in his bag.
Yeah, but whatever he has a gun, he wasn't gonna have it on his hand. It was on his bag. He was trying to take it off. So
okay.
But they did whatever they want because they're the law.
And do you think at that moment?
Yeah. See, he had a gun. He didn't have it in his hand at the moment. So they were unjustified. Like, where are we going with this? Wow. Whew. The team you trust. Let's throw the police under the bus. Channel 10, talk about burying the headline. The police were punching this poor guy trying to enjoy the Dominican festival, 10 o'clock at night. Been drinking 12 hours at least, swaying. That guy weighs maybe 450 pounds. The girlfriend, he was handing over his gun. Why did he have the weapon is the question. Folks, before we talk to Kevin Lenahan, I want to remind you about Royal Exteriors. Roofing or siding. Call Andrew today, 401-533-9989. 401-533-9989. Royal Exteriors. Free estimate, 401-533-9989. You deal directly with the owner. Put Andrew into the mix. Royal Exteriors, where the customer is either king or queen. You can find them online, royalexteriorsri.com. They're also on Facebook. If you're thinking maybe it's time, new roof, new siding, home business, Royal Exteriors, 401-533-9989. Give them a chance to earn your business. It's Royal Exteriors. Before we bring on Kevin, just one more thought. Folks, if anything had happened, I mean, if you saw the video, and I'm so bummed we missed it by like 5 or 10 minutes, so maybe a little bit more. But anyhow, I mean, that was turning into a riot. And they started throwing bottles at the police. And then they had to arrest a bunch of other people. Because then people were like, hey, leave him alone. And screaming. I want to repeat, this wasn't someone who pushed a police officer. This isn't someone that then even threw something at a police. The guy has a loaded handgun. He's already been arrested on gun charges. And he's got it in his satchel. And you know what he's looking to do? He's looking to hide it or dump it off to someone. See, that's what they do. They stall. And he's yelling at the police. And meanwhile, he's trying to get one of his hombres over there to then they try to get rid of the weapon. The Maya Brophy Bayerman case that we found out, that great policing by Providence Police, they started following Sean Mann in Pinkerton. They were following them. After a shooting, and all of a sudden they saw a bag get thrown out of the window on Atlantic Avenue. They went back and retrieved it. And what did they find? It was a satchel. And inside that satchel was the very handgun that was used to shoot and kill Maya Brophy Bayerman. That's their MO. That's where they carry it. They carry drugs in the satchel, and then they also carry a firearm in the satchel. So that's what he was looking to do. The wife and the mother, oh, he was going to hand it over. They needed to ask him nicely. All right, folks, joining us right now, and the reason I'm having him on is, as many of you know that have followed the Karen Read case, first of all, Kevin Lenahan, Yellow Cottage Tales, he's very knowledgeable. And nothing that the Read defense or Karen Read herself does is by accident in any way. And as I have heard now, from people communicating with the defense, First of all, as we have mentioned with our legal expert, attorney Tim Dodd, in a retrial, the defense does not have to say with the same strategy that they used in the first trial. Now, a lot of people don't understand that. Remember, a defense in a trial, if you're trying to defend someone, someone's up on whatever the charges are, you don't have to solve the crime. You just have to raise doubt that your defendant, your client, there's not enough evidence to prove conviction on it. And that can come in many different ways. It can be through scientific evidence. It can be through a variety of different ways. But it doesn't mean you have to. Now, you can do third-party culprit where you throw out, this is who really did it, or whatever the reason may be. But so they're under no obligation. So the Karen Read, someone set up dinner for her with two people from a very low-rated sports station in Boston. And so the two people started talking about it. And one of the things was really planted to them that Karen Read wanted her, this girl, Courtney, I don't even know her last name, she's on with Greg Hill, you can announce on the radio, blah, blah, blah. And folks, here to discuss it with us is, and I've had the privilege of being in his fine program, but again, you see him on Court TV with Vinny, is our friend Kevin Lenahan of Yellow Cottage Tales. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Hey, John, good to see you as always. Thanks for covering the case honestly, even at a cost to your own audience. So thank you.
That's all right. Kevin, I want to hear your thought. I find this so interesting, and I want to back up just so people understand. Last August, because I went through all my records, last August, when I was communicating with someone who was essentially with the defense, one of the things that they were predicated on was that, because I was going into what's the motive and why would they do this? And one of the things that I was told last August was that there was this individual, Colin Albert, and it was this known drug dealer, and John O'Keefe started sniffing around, and they got wind of it, so they set him up, and that's why Chris Albert said, get over here. And here's the story that I was told. John O'Keefe walked into the home of Brian Albert, and boom, Colin Albert sucker punched him, knocked him to the basement. They have Chloe the dog, they have Brian Albert, they have Brian Higgins, the three of them. It's a beating. It gets out of hand. Oh my God, we just meant to teach him a lesson. Instead, they end up taking his life. So then they throw him out on the front lawn. So I want to hear your reaction to Karen Read handpicking Greg Hill and his sidekick or whoever she is, Courtney, on EI, of saying, and you can say, I've never believed this online chatter that Colin Albert, that John was investigating his drug dealing, and there was this bad acrimonious relationship between the two.
Yeah, and I was wondering the last few days why she's addressing this now. What's the real reason? And your introduction actually just gave me, I think, an insight as to why, and we'll come back to that. But I want to go back just a little bit further to early last summer when they were breaking this story. One of the things, and Karen had said this in her interview with Gretchen Voss, the excellent writer for Boston Magazine.
Yes.
She had said that there was an incident. Aaron and John were at home, and the Ring video woke them up because there were somebody out drinking on the lawn. And it turned out to be some teenagers that John got into an argument with. And Karen claimed that Colin was the teenager, and that was maybe the source of the feud, right? Because as they were trying to develop Colin into this third-party culprit, they needed to come up with a motive. But that didn't really satisfy, especially considering that the day of John's death, he went to D&E Pizza, owned by Chris Albert, with his nephew. And Chris is a very friendly guy, and he went over and was friendly with John, and he invited him out for drinks later. So that's how they ended up meeting that night. So I had been working last summer, talking a lot on the phone to Sean McDonough, Sean in the Gulf, people might know it as. He's on Howie Carr now and all the time. And, I liked Sean. And I also was I had a lot of respect for his career in law enforcement. I don't know what he did, but I respect him, as a retired figure in federal law enforcement. And so I had a lot of talks with him on the phone, on my show once or twice too. So Sean told me, he said, "I got a big scoop for you," and I feel bad to this day at the role that I played in this. I feel really bad, and I've done what I could to make amends of it. But he told me a couple of things. One, that he had someone who was actively still on the DEA, that there was a current DEA investigation into drug dealing in the Canton Police.
Wow.
2, he told me that John had Karen film somebody who was dealing drugs on the street corner near their house, and that John had sent that to the Canton Police. Now, some of this is true. So now I'm not going to say that Karen is the source of that.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know that. However, what I didn't know then, and that I know now and learned not long after this, was that Karen was one of Sean's sources. She was someone that he was talking to regularly, as was Alan Jackson.
Yes.
So we now know Karen manipulates the media. And going back to the Ring video, she took a real thing and inserted Colin into the narrative when Gretchen Voss found out that it was absolutely not Colin that was involved in that real incident of kids drinking in the yard.
Wow.
So what I wondered was this just her repeating the same technique here? Now, I don't know that for sure. But interestingly, it was a real incident where Karen did film somebody at John's request, and that video is in Discovery. I've never seen it. And I think the reason was because it was sent to Kevin Albert, who is a detective on the Canton Police Force, and one with an impeccable reputation.
Yes.
So, and was somebody that John respected and was friendly with. So he reported this to Kevin. But at the time, this seemed to add things together, that maybe this is why the feds are involved. This is the motive here. This is like why I always, all summer when I was trying to be both sides on this, but why would they want to lure John back to the house and beat him up? It doesn't make sense to me, you know? But if they were trying to scare him out of harassing an alleged drug dealer in their family, that might make some kind of sense, right?
Right.
So I put together a script. I was very careful about this, and I'm not an experienced journalist like you, John. So I try to just act by my instincts of doing what was fair.
Yep.
I scripted it out and I sent it to Sean the day before for approval to make sure everything was in there was exactly how he had reported to me. And he gave me an enthusiastic approval. The next day, and I told people, this is a mistake I made too. I made the mistake of telling people tomorrow I have big news on the channel. So there was a big audience there. So I shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
And the next day, about an hour and a half beforehand, I sent him the script again for approval. And again, he gave it to me. But then about a half hour before the show, he got cold feet. The reason was not the Colin aspect of it. The reason was he said his DEA friend didn't want him talking about this. And he now revealed to me that he found out that the DEA investigation had actually been 12 years before.
Oh,
and he
my
gave me
God.
And he gave me some information on that. There was an officer on the Canton Police that had retired after that, but had some drug problems and something like that. So he walked it back, and I wasn't sure where to go with it. So I adjusted the script, and I never used the name of Colin, and I never did all last year on my shows because I never bought into it, and B, it didn't seem fair to do this to a 17-year-old kid. But I would occasionally refer to theories about the nephew. But to the part but people were able to understand what I was saying, and the video was still up there if anybody wants to see it. I believe it's called 6 Degrees to Ken Berkowitz. And Sean the next day got blowback from this. So he wanted to come on my show and correct the air. And I let him do that. However, he was dishonest about it. He blamed it all on me, but I had scripted this all, and I let him do it because I'm like, all right, protect the source, right? That was my kind of idea. Excuse me 1 second. Let me turn off my phone.
That's all right. And I want to just play Kevin. I want to just, and again, folks, Kevin Lenahan, Yellow Cottage Tales. I want to play. This is the exchange that really got a lot of people's attention, and it's very significant. And I want people to understand, as I don't know this person. Her name is Courtney Cox and Greg Hill. They at no point do they even mention the fact or apparently bring up to Karen Read that she could have testified at her own trial. She chose not to testify. They're acting like, oh, she's had to remain quiet. They claim she has an exclusive deal with Vanity Fair. And next month, when it comes out after that, she's willing to go on their radio station, EEI, and answer all questions about the case. Now, you and I can laugh at that because they have shut off. Last fall, Kevin, as you know, they tried the media tour. They did the Gretchen Voss interview, Boston Common. They did the Nightline. They did NBC 10, the Today Show, Dateline, and then that was it. And
there's more. They've done.
Any attorney,
sorry, John, let me just quickly. They've done hours of documentary filming. In a documentary, I won't say anything further about it, but that will appear before the next trial. So go ahead.
Correct. But I'm saying you haven't seen her sit down and do any interviews. And as any attorney would say, you don't have your client say something like that. So the idea that she's facing retrial in January and did not take the stand, and these individuals think that she's going to go on the radio and answer questions. But this is the part because it reinforces what I have heard and was told by someone that they are going to go down a different path, which, by the way, they're able to do in a retrial, which is they're going to come up with a different defense. But this is what really caught my attention. I want to play it. Here it is.
Because she was very honest with us, because a big story all over the internet is that John O'Keefe had reported Colin Albert for some drug activity before all of this happened. She said that story is completely false. Yeah. People are trying to make it more dramatic and make it seem like Colin Albert would have some type of, reason for hating John O'Keefe. She said that never happened. He did not report him for anything.
No.
Now, Kevin, what's your reaction in hearing it like that in real time?
It's interesting, and again, we're speculating into why they're bringing it up now, and I think this goes to what you're saying. They seem to they're tipping the hat to their next strategy, which is to focus more on Colin. So they may be trying to, as they focus on that strategy, talk about his fights or something like that, and they want to avoid the accusation that Karen was involved in any kind of a false smear. And we also should point out that video that is in discovery, which none of us has seen, but if it was Colin in that video, the defense would have used it. So it's clearly not Colin in the video. And just one other thing to add on this, John.
Go ahead.
So it was within a few weeks of this, maybe within a week or two, that they went on Nightline. And in that episode, Alan Jackson himself said that they believe that John went into a tense situation and that he had been set up.
Yes.
This is consistent with this is why I say it. I feel like they were playing me through Sean. And at the time, there was really only a couple people covering this, me and Turtle Boy. So,
here's my interpretation of this whole thing, Kevin. And that is, see, if you remember, they did not even mention Colin Albert in closing arguments, number one. Number two, it was proven in the Karen Read trial that he never crossed paths with John. He was never there. To me, it was, if you remove, this reinforces to me, they're going to go down a different alley. And what I believe is at the end of the first trial and in closing arguments, they zeroed in on Higgins. So what I have been told is they realize inside the house, the jury, Kevin, they didn't buy inside the house. If they were hung, you wouldn't believe everything. They were hung 10-2 or 9-3 on manslaughter. What's that? The jury saying, we don't believe he went in the house. So now, if you just take Colin out of the mix, and I think this is her signaling, number one, she is certainly accountable in a lawsuit from Colin Albert. He had to leave college. She threw it out there. Kevin, if you remove that John was investigating Colin Albert for drug dealing, well, then the whole story that he walks in the house, why would Colin Albert sucker punch him and go after him if that's not true? So I believe, and have been told, they're now going to focus just on something happened in front of the house. And it was either, as you know, Kevin Higgins left early. He did have a snowplow on his vehicle. Maybe that's play. He did destroy his phone or got rid of his phone as well. He then supposedly went back to the police station. He doesn't have a solid alibi of where he was. There's no one with Higgins saying I was with him. And as you know, John O'Keefe's phone never moved from the front lawn. They were never able to really put him inside the house. So I believe they're going to move away from inside, focus on something happened on the lawn. Maybe Higgins, love triangle, saw him. Karen even said, did I inadvertently hit him? And then in his drunkenness, something happened to him. So maybe he's drunk and stumbling and he got up and then Higgins, boom, knocked him over. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe Lucky didn't see him when he plowed into him. But I believe this is the first signal that they're going to completely remove him going inside and focus just on the front of the house.
Maybe. And of course, we all saw Karen on TV last year say that she dropped John off in the driveway and saw him start to walk into the house. So none of that makes sense.
No.
And I think another important thing for people really need to remember here is there's only two sides to a coin of this case. One, either Karen's SUV struck John, or two, B, if you want the tails, there was a massive planting of evidence.
Right.
Either one of those things is true, because there's no way that there's something they missed in the investigation. No, there was a massive planting of evidence. Either that happened or Karen's SUV struck John. So I don't know how that would, if that fits into the whole Higgins scheme that they're going to try to do. And like you said, they don't need a cohesive theory. They just need to create a little bit of doubt here and there.
As Kevin Mahoney said on one of your great Yellow Cottage Tales broadcasts, that he didn't think Trooper Paul did a great job. He thinks, the accident reconstruction. Again, there's some weird things here. But Kevin, just the element of Colin Albert. See, for Karen Reed to want to impress upon these two people, and she asked them in the beginning when she met with them, how much do you know about the case? And they're like, not that much. We kind of followed it. But she wanted to impress. Oh, I never floated that out about Colin Albert. When you and I know the state police body cam of them going to arrest her, what is her line? Oh, we all know this is a big joke. Colin Albert and Brian Albert, right? They pummeled him, and then now I'm getting blamed. She was the one that dragged him in. She was the one. I view this as she went out of her way to try to dispel this notion that John was investigating the drug dealing. You know what else? I just also want to point out one thing. And folks, again, my guest is Kevin Lenahan of Yellow Cottage Tales. I'm going to say this. He is an expert on the Karen Reed case. You see him on Court TV. Kevin, I saw someone put, well, I think this was a comment someone put. Well, I think John's the type that wouldn't keep his business to himself, so Karen wouldn't know if he was investigating that. But here's the thing. Karen didn't tell, Greg Hill and this Courtney. She didn't say, well, I have no idea if he was investigating Colin Albert for that. She went out of her way to impress upon them and said, oh, and you can say on the radio, John was never investigating that. There's a huge difference between, oh, gee, I don't know what he was doing, or no, that didn't happen. There was no bad relationship. And Kevin, let me go a step farther. If Karen Reed removes Colin Albert from the equation, why are these people protesting at D&E Pizza? Because number one, as you know, Chris wasn't even there, number one. And then number two, now she's removing Colin from the whole equation. You remove Colin from the equation, there's no sucker punch. There's no tumbling to the basement. There's no dog bites. Now, why did they suddenly that night, with no motive, decide to take his life in the basement?
I hope that Greg Hill and his court team, if they with her again in a public setting like this, they ask this simple question. Karen, why didn't you tell us that you did film a drug dealer on the corner at the request of John and send this in and had John send this into the Canton police? Yeah. Why didn't you tell him about that? Because that's the thing that was used for the drug dealing theory. And so why didn't she just come clean and at least say, if you're gonna be a truth teller, say, yes, this is what happened, but it had nothing to do with Colin. But yet she doesn't even mention that. Isn't that kind of
Well,
a giveaway?
here's the other thing, Kevin, and I spoke with our legal expert attorney Tim Dodd. Now these two actually have now opened themselves up. Greg Hill and this Courtney, they can be subpoenaed to be brought in to what did she tell you at this dinner? I'm sure they didn't realize that at the time. They may say, hey, you know, we're members of the media and we're not going to discuss what was said. However, they did discuss it. They discussed it on the radio. There's a huge difference between someone protecting the source. They've already said what she told them. Now let's just have them say it under oath in court. And what she told them is different. As you say, go back to they didn't even ask her about the Gretchen Voss article, but what she told Boston Common Magazine less than a year ago is different. And Kevin, one last thing is I'm pretty confident that Karen Read is on tape discussing Colin Albert. There was drug dealing. He John was they was getting too close. They were trying to send a message. I believe she doesn't even remember what she was saying last summer, maybe even a year ago. And now she sought them out. She wanted to put that out there. That was the tidbit. They didn't even realize the opportunity that they had. I'm also curious who set this up. This was done by design. This was, you know what else, Kevin? Notice she didn't go to all the YouTubers. Can you imagine some of the people that were in court or some of the YouTube crowd that would say, oh my God, I had dinner with Karen Read. And I could say the following, because if she gave that tidbit to one of them, what would they have said? They would have said, what are you talking about? Colin was dealing drugs. John was gonna, he was looking into it. And that's why they would push back. These two people from EI, they just said, oh, okay, we'll make sure that we mention that Monday on the air and start to put that out there. I think it has more to do with potential legal action that I believe that Colin Albert has towards Karen Read for everything that she's done. But I'll give you the closing word on this. And I really want to appreciate Kevin Lenihan of Yellow Cottage Tales joining us during the Real News at Noon. Go ahead, Kevin. You have the last word.
Thank you, John. I agree with a lot of that. And I just want to build on it by saying I believe that her strategy is terms of comparing YouTube content creators to how she uses them compared to how she uses regular media is things that are a little bit more that she wants to keep a distance herself from. She uses YouTube. So you can get that through a chain of people and that gets it to a content creator that puts it out there. Because most of these people that she manages very effectively, they have no interest in the truth. They don't ask any kind of both sides kind of questions. And they're just going to run with something that might get the horde going crazy. Yeah. And so I do think that that's why she's, for something a little bit more something where she can be more cautious, she'll go to a little bit more of a mainstream media source like EEI, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And she definitely wanted to get it out there. But I'm not going to listen. I mean, I'll say, how come she didn't have, I'll just throw it out there. Why didn't she have dinner and throw that out to Jessica Machado, Fall River reporter? I mean, Jessica would cover the trial, should be in court. Why not give her that tidbit to throw out there? But she didn't do that. She went with Greg Hill and Courtney Cox. Kevin, how can people see your great work in broadcasts?
You can check us out on Yellow Cottage Tales. Just look it up on YouTube, and a couple of times a week we go on. It's not really a regular time, just whenever we have something to report.
All right. Kevin, hey, great to see you. Be well, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, folks, there it is. Kevin Lenihan, Yellow Cottage Tales, right here on the Real News at Noon. And again, folks, good afternoon. You're listening to the John DePietro Show and watching. It was important. I know some of that is inside. Kevin is very, very knowledgeable. But I'm always intrigued with a story like this when someone like Karen Read seeks out some people outside the circle and she wants to get some information out there. And I believe, I don't know, but I believe that this Colin Albert, he was 17 years old at the time. I mean, I believe he'd be well within his right, what I have been told, to take legal action against her. And she could say, oh, no, that's not true. Look, I told these two people, Greg and Courtney, that that I told them that I didn't believe that rumor. So I think it's, again, everything done by design. Folks, this portion of our program, and you hear me talk about him, Paul Staskevich of Volare Motors. And you can't say Volare Motors without also mentioning the service element that they have, which is Stephen. Volare Motors, 1003 Park Avenue in Cranston. Great prices, great vehicles, great service. Volare Motors in Cranston, New England's #1 dealer in used Volvo sales and service. 27 years of specialized Volvo sales and service. Volare Motors. Now, you can find them on Facebook. You can find them online. You can call them at 401-942-9568. They specialize in Volvo sales and service, quality pre-owned vehicles, largest selection of Volvos in Rhode Island. It's Volare Motors. Stop in and see Paul. You could trade in or have one of them. And by the way, they have a couple of other vehicles as well. They stock all types of Volvos and Ford trucks, but they specialize in Volvo sales and service. Volare Motors, 1003 Park Avenue in Cranston. And folks, I also want to remind you, if you're having a problem, feet or ankle, Greenville Foot and Ankle Specialists, call them today, 401-949-3220. 401-949-3220. Greenville Foot and Ankle Specialists. They're right in the Smithfield Medical Center, Route 5 in Smithfield. All their doctors are board-certified podiatrists, 3 on staff to treat you. They take all health insurance. You can save time, avoid the ER. Greenville Foot and Ankle Specialist. Foot pain is not normal. So if you have foot pain, whether it is skin conditions, bunions, hammer toe, injuries like a fracture or sprain, plantar fasciitis, something that is preventing you from walking back and forth, Greenville Foot and Ankle Specialist, 401-949-3220. Book an appointment. You can also find them online. And remember, they also have digital x-ray on site to make a quick diagnosis, begin treatment immediately. It's Greenville Foot and Ankle Specialist. Now, also, folks, I want to remind you on this Wednesday, Don Jose's Tequila. There's a big story in the Boston Globe. They mentioned the top places on Federal Hill. What do you think they mentioned of upscale Mexican cuisine? Boom, Don Jose's Tequila, 351 Atwells Avenue. By now, maybe you saw the video of me enjoying my margarita flight and tequila flight out on the back patio. Yesterday was Taco Tuesday, and then Monday through Thursday, $26.99, 3-course special. Sunday brunch, Don Jose's Tequila. Well, folks, good afternoon. Kevin is just fantastic. He's very, very knowledgeable. You're listening to the John DePietro Show. It's AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. Now, again, let me also just put a period. The Karen Reed case, it is scheduled for January. Let's see how this plays out. Kevin was mentioning some people. I don't particularly, I mean, there's different facets of it. And some people really just do, as you know, they just do the Karen Reed case. We do a lot of different topics, but it's not lost on me that, and I meant to mention this during the course of, well, 2 things about this thing of her having dinner with 2 people at this low-rated Boston sports station. Number one, they didn't even mention, hey, maybe we'll have Paul O'Keefe on to talk about it. Hear the other side. They don't even mention anything like that. That's number one. Maybe they need to have dinner with Paul O'Keefe. That's number one. Number 2, during the course when the O'Keefe family had been attacked and booed and ridiculed, at no point did Karen Reed ever say, hey, no one should be doing that to John O'Keefe's family. She's never come out and said that. And in this situation, she could have said, I just can't comment on that. But she went out of her way to say, No, there was nothing. There's nothing to that. John wasn't investigating that. She went out of her way to try to exonerate in a manner Colin Albert. The problem with that, and again, he was a 17-year-old kid. He had to leave Bridgewater State College because people were showing up there. People would harass him. The Boston Herald had him on the front page with his knuckles. They showed videos of him. They were in street hockey saying, yeah, we're going to go after. He has absolutely been vilified. And part of the whole narrative of why a Boston police officer, John O'Keefe, had his life snatched from him was he was getting too close. He was investigating the Colin Albert drug dealing. There's a video of this person saying, and he distributed the neighborhood. And then Karen Reed casually, these people down the, I didn't even know what they had. Casually mentions, by the way, you can say on the radio that, no, there was nothing to that. And I certainly have never said anything. She came up with it. She's the author of it. She did the whole thing in motion on it. Too late. All right, here's what we're going to do. 1 o'clock, coming up is the 1 o'clock news. Next hour, our legal expert, Attorney Tim Dodd. Yes, Facebook Live later, folks, but right now, let's get you caught up to speed. President Trump news conference tomorrow. Stay tuned. We're back on the other side after the 1 o'clock news.